Good morning everyone. Myself is Kiran Murli, lecturer in physics working at Government City College. Today we are going to deal with the special theory of relativity. First of all, what is a relativity? To know about that, first we have to know about the relations. Once Akbar drew a line on the floor to his coat and asked the wise man to shorten the line without rubbing it. Everyone was puzzled that how is it possible to shorten a line without making alternations in it. At the same time, Birbal came forward and drew another longer line near the previous one. Then asked the king, Sir, which of the two lines is shorter? The king at once replied that the line drawn by me is shorter than the line drawn by you. Birbal smiled and said, So the line drawn by you has been shortened without rubbing. This shows that the length is relative. A line at the same time may be shorter relative to one while longer relative to other. Imagine two friends standing on the opposite banks of a river facing each other. There is one house on the bank of the river. One friend says that it is towards left while the other says that it is towards right. Now the question is which of the two is right? The answer is that both are correct because the house is to the left of one while right to the other is clearly shows that position is relative. If we compare a hockey ball with an atom, then it is extremely big, and if we compare it with earth, it is extremely small. Thus, we can say that size is relative. What is time now? The answer depends upon location because the time is now in India is different from the time in America. There is no paradox here because we cannot answer the question without referring the place. Thus, time is relative. Next, the theory which deals with the relativity of motion and rest is called the theory of relativity. It is divided into two parts, special theory and general theory. The special theory of relativity deals with objects and systems which are either moving at a constant speed with respect to one another or are they at rest. The general theory deals with the object or systems which are speeding up or slowing down with respect to one another. The special theory of relativity was proposed by Albert Einstein in the year 1905. This theory is generalization of Newtonian mechanics which fails when applied to high speed particles and modifies it to make applicable to the particles moving with velocity approaching to the velocity of light. In this way, Newtonian mechanics reduces to a special case of relativistic mechanics for particles moving with speeds much less than the speed of light. So, the theory of relativity is of great importance for the micro world. Frame of reference. In order to consider the idea of frame of reference, consider a ball thrown vertically upward from the train moving with a uniform velocity. The observer from the train observes that the ball moves up and down, that is, in a straight line. An observer on the ground observes a parabolic path of the motion of the same ball. The reason is that the ball, as observed from the ground, seems to have a horizontal component of velocity equal to the velocity of the train and a vertical component of velocity equal to the velocity of the ball. So, the same event is described in different ways by different observers situated in different systems. So, the motion is relative. Thus, the motion of the body has no meaning unless it is described with respect to some well-defined coordinate system. The coordinate system is known as frame of reference. The velocity is now measured with respect to this frame of reference. The position of train can be found with respect to a platform on which we stand. Thus, any system relative to which the motion of an object can be described is called a frame of reference. The frame of reference is selected in such a way that the laws of nature may become fundamentally simpler in that frame of reference. There are two types of frames of reference: inertial or non-accelerated frames. Non-inertial or accelerated frames. Inertial frames. A frame of reference is said to be inertial when two bodies in this frames obey Newton's law of inertia and other laws of Newtonian mechanics. In this frame, a body not acted upon by external force is at rest or moves with a constant velocity. Consider a coordinate system relative to which a body in motion has coordinates x, y, z. As the body is not acted upon by any external force, then m d square x by dt square equals to 0, m d square y by dt square equals to 0, and m d square z by dt square equals to 0, which gives dx by dt equals to ux constant, dy by dt equals to uy constant, dz by dt uz equals to constant. Here ux, uy and uz are components of velocity along x, y, z directions which are constant. Thus, we can say that without the application of an external force, a body in motion continues its motion with uniform velocity in a straight line. This is Newton's first law of motion. Hence, an inertial frame of reference is one in which Newton's law of motion is valid. Non-inertial frames. A frame of reference is said to be non-inertial frame when a body not acted upon by any external force is accelerated. In this frame, the Newton's laws are not valid. Next is Michelson-Morley experiment. With the acceptance of wave theory of light, it was thought that the space is filled with a substance called ether. The ether was supposed to be invisible, massless, perfectly transparent, perfectly non-resistive, having high elasticity and low density. Lorentz maintained the stationary ether concept. It was further supposed that the earth moved through it without producing any disturbance. So, if the ether hypothesis is correct, then it is possible to determine the absolute velocity of the earth with respect to the other frame. Michelson and Morley carried out an experiment using Michelson interferometer for this purpose. Experimental arrangement. The experimental arrangement is as shown in figure. Light from a monochromatic extended source S, after being rendered parallel by a collimating lens L, falls on the semi-silvered glass plate G inclined at an angle 45 degrees to the beam. It is divided into two parts, one being reflected from the semi-silvered surface G, giving rise to ray 1 which travels towards mirror M1, and the other being transmitted, giving rise to ray 2 which travels towards mirror M2. The two rays fall normally on mirrors M1 and M2 and are reflected back along their original paths. The reflected rays again meet at the semi-silvered surface on the glass plate G and enter the telescope where interference pattern is obtained. The optical distances of the mirrors M1 and M2 from G are made equal with the help of a compensating plate not showing in the figure. If the apparatus is at rest in ether, the two reflected waves would take equal time to return the glass plate G. But actually, the whole apparatus is moving along with the earth. Thus, suppose that the direction of motion of earth is in direction of the initial beam. Due to the motion of the earth, the optical paths traversed by both the rays are not the same. The reflections at mirrors M1 and M2 do not take place at A and B, but A dash and B dash are shown in figure. Thus, the times taken by the two rays to travel to the mirrors and black to G will be different in this case. Theory. Let the two mirrors M1 and M2 be at an equal distance I from the glass plate G. Further, let small c and v be the velocities of the light and apparatus on earth. It is obvious from figure that the reflected ray 1 from glass plate G strikes the mirror M1 at A dash and not at A due to the motion of the earth. The total path of the ray from G to A dash and back to G dash will be form a triangle G A dash D. G A dash square equals to A dash A dash square plus A dash D square. If T be the time taken by the ray to move from G to A dash, then above equation will be changes as Ct square equals to Vt square plus L square. If or T equals to L by under root C square by V square. If T1 be the time taken by the ray to travel the whole path, then T1 equals to 2T equals to 2L by C, 2L by under root C square by V square minus 2L by C, taking as common 1 minus V square by C square whole power half. Consider the case of transmitted ray 2 which is moving longitudinally towards mirror M2. It has a velocity c minus v relative to the apparatus when it is moving from G to B. During its return journey, its velocity relative to apparatus is c plus v. If T2 be the total time taken by the longitudinal ray to reach G dash, then T2 equals to L by C minus V plus 1 by C plus V. By solving that, we get 2L by C into 1 minus V square by C square whole inverse. Therefore, thus the difference in times of travel of longitudinal and transverse journey is delta T equals to T2 minus T1, that is 2L by C into V square by 2C square, that is LV square by C cube. Therefore, optical path difference between two rays is given by optical path difference equals to velocity into delta T, that is C into LV square by C cube, that is LV square by C square. If lambda is the wavelength of light used, then path difference in terms of wavelength is LV square by C square lambda. Michelson and Morley performed the experiment in two steps. That is, firstly, by the setting as shown in figure, and secondly, by turning the apparatus through 90 degrees. When the apparatus was turned through 90 degrees, the positions of two mirrors are changed. Now, the path difference is in opposite direction. That is, the path difference is minus LV square by lambda C square wavelength. The resultant path difference now becomes 2LV square by lambda C square. We know that a change in optical path difference by lambda corresponds to a shift of one fringe, and hence the path difference corresponds to a fringe shift 2LV square by lambda square. Following were the data of Michelson and Morley experiment. L is 1.0 into 10 power 10 cube centimeters. Lambda equals to 5.0 into 10 power minus 5 centimeters. V is 3 into 10 power 6 centimeters per second, and C is 3 into 10 power 10 centimeters per second. Therefore, on solving that, we get n equals to 0.4 fringe. Thus, a shift of less than half a fringe was only expected. Michelson and Morley could observe a shift of about 0.01 of fringe. Of course, the shift is within the limits of the error of observations. They repeated the experiment at different points on the earth's surface at different seasons of the year, but they could not detect any measurable shift. So, it was a null or negative result. The negative result suggests that it is impossible to measure the speed of Earth relative to ether, or the concept of a fixed frame of reference cannot be checked by experiment. In this way, the null result of the experiment lead to the total rejection of ether hypothesis. This suggested that the speed of light in vacuum is the same in all frames of reference which are in uniform relative motion. Explanation of negative result. The following explanations were given to explain the negative result of Michelson-Morley experiment. First one, ether drag theory. According to this theory, the moving earth completely drags the ether with it. It means that there is no motion between ether and earth. V equals to 0. Now T1 equals to 2L by C and T2 is also equals to 2L by C. Hence there is no shift in fringes and null result is explained. The above explanation was not accepted due to the following two reasons. First one is, it is contrary to the experimentally observed phenomena of aberration of light from stars. Second one, Fizeau had experimentally shown that a moving body could drag the light waves only partially. The partial dragging of light waves was also explained by electromagnetic theory without introducing the ether drag hypothesis. Second one, Fitzgerald-Lorentz contraction hypothesis. According to this hypothesis, all the material bodies moving with velocity v are contracted in the direction of motion by a factor under root 1 minus v square by c square. Hence, if L0 is the length of a body at rest relative to ether, and L is the length when it is in motion with a velocity v to ether, then L equals to L0 into under root 1 minus v square by c square. Putting the idea of a length contraction for time t2 in Michelson-Morley experiment, that is by replacing L, that is L into under root 1 minus v square by c square. We have T2 equals to 2L by C into 1 minus v square by v square into half into 1 plus v square by c square. By solving that, we get 2L by C into 1 plus v square by c square minus v square by 2c square minus v power 4 by 2c square. Neglecting that higher term, we get T2 equals to T1. Hence, therefore, there will be no shift in the fringes. In this way, negative result is explained. Third one, light velocity hypothesis. According to this hypothesis, the light from a moving source has a velocity which is vector sum of its natural velocity and the velocity of the source. Thus, the light from the source had always the same constant velocity relative to the source and to the interferometer. In this way, the negative result could be explained. On the basis of certain astronomical evidence, this hypothesis was also rejected. Einstein in 1905 proposed the new revolutionary idea that the motion through ether is a meaningless concept. The only motion relative to a frame of reference has physical significance. The frame of reference may be a road, earth surface, the sun, etc. But in every case, he must satisfy it. Next is postulates of a special theory of relativity. Upon examining a large number of problems on the detection of ether, wind and the experiments which had been performed to save the ether wind theory in 1905, Albert Einstein drew two very important conclusions. These are known as fundamental postulates of a special theory of relativity and are pillars on which this theory is based. The postulates are: first one, all physical laws are the same in all inertial frames of reference which are moving with constant velocity relative to each other. Now, according to this postulate, it is impossible by any means to demonstrate absolute motion. Motion in respect of the ether and absolute position. The absolute position motion is meaningless. Only the motion of bodies relative to one another has any physical meaning. In other words, there is no absolute motion according to Einstein. Under detection of absolute motion in turn implies under detection of ether, as ether it is absolute rest. Here it should be noted that Einstein does not completely reject the idea of existence of ether but expresses that it can never be detected. In coming to this conclusion, Einstein reasoned that if we were ever alone out in space, far removed from all the stars and planets, with nothing to use as a reference point to measure our speed, we will never know whether we are moving or not. To make this point more clear, consider two friends are in space in smoothly and uniformly moving rockets. When they are far apart from each other, they are unable to say whether they are at rest or in uniform motion. Consider that they approach each other and are in range of visibility. They are now in a position to say whether they are at rest or in uniform motion by comparing each other. Second one, the speed of light in vacuum is the same in every inertial frame. According to this postulate, the speed of light is the same in all directions, no matter whether the source of light is moving or stationary. Whether the velocity of light is measured relatively to the medium in which it travels or relatively to a moving observer, it is the greatest velocity obtainable. The second postulate expresses the result of a Michelson-Morley experiment. Next is Lorentz transformation of space and time. Invariance of speed of light in all inertial systems implies that Galilean velocity transformations do not hold and need not be replaced. The laws of mechanics, which are invariant under Galilean transformations, also need to be modified. Without making any particular postulates, Lorentz algebraically searched for the transformation which may replace the Galilean transformation. Consider two inertial frames systems S and S dash as shown in figure. The system S dash is moving with a velocity v with respect to S in the positive direction of x. For convenience, suppose that the axes of two coordinate systems coincide at t equals to t dash equals to 0. Let a pulse of light be generated at time t equals to 0 at the horizon which grows in space. Now consider the situation when the pulse reaches at point P. Let x, y, z, t and x dash, v, y dash, z dash, t dash be the positions and time coordinates of P measured by observers O and O dash in frames S and S dash. Velocity of light equals to distance by time, or c equals to x square plus y square plus z square whole power half by t. When the pulse is observed from S dash, then we have x dash square plus y dash square plus z dash square minus t square by c square equals to 0. Moreover, y dash equals to y and z dash equals to z. Therefore, x square minus c square t square equals to x dash square minus c square t dash square. The transformation between x and x dash can be represented by this simple relationship. X equals to k into x minus vt, where k being independent of x and t. Suppose that the system S is moving relative to S dash with velocity minus v along a plus direction, then x equals to k into x dash plus vt dash. Substituting that, we get t dash equals to x by kv minus k by v into x minus vt. That is t dash equals to k into t minus x by v into t minus 1 by k square. Substituting the value of x dash and t dash, x square minus c square t square equals to k square into x minus vt whole square minus c square k square into t minus x by v into 1 minus 1 by k square whole square. By solving that equals to 0, this is an identity and hence coefficients of various powers of x and t must vanish separately. Equating the coefficients of t squares equal to 0, we get minus c square minus k square v square plus c square k square equals to 0. That is k square into c square minus v square equals to c square. K equals to 1 by under root 1 minus v square by c square. Substituting the value of k, we get the Lorentz transformation for space. That is x dash equals to x minus vt by under root 1 minus v square by c square. Similarly, substituting the values of k, we get a Lorentz transformation for time. That is t dash equals to t 1 by under root 1 minus v square by c square into t minus x by v into 1 minus c square by v square by c square. By solving, we get t dash equals to t minus vx by c square by under root 1 minus v square by c square. The equations x dash and t dash are called the Lorentz transformation equations. When v is much less than c, that is Newtonian or classical mechanics, the equations x dash equals to x minus vt and t dash equals to t. Thus, the low values of v Lorentz transformation approach to Galilean. Lorentz inverse transformations. Assume that a system S is moving with velocity minus v relative to S dash along opposite direction of x. Then Lorentz transformation can be represented by x equals to x dash plus vt dash by under root 1 minus v square by c square, y equals to y dash, z equals to dash dash, and t equals to t dash plus vx dash by v square by under root 1 minus v square by c square. These are known as inverse Lorentz transformation equations. The table shows that different expressions of Galilean and Lorentz transformations. Galilean transformations are x dash equals to x minus vt. Lorentz transformation is x dash equals to x minus vt by under root 1 minus v square by c square, and inverse Lorentz transformations is x equals to x dash plus vt dash by under root 1 minus v square by c square. Y dash equals to y dash equals to y dash, y equals to y dash. z dash equals to z, z dash equals to z, z equals to z dash. T dash equals to t, t dash equals to t minus vx by c square by under root 1 minus v square by c square. T equals to t dash plus vx dash by c square by under root 1 minus v square by c square. Next is length contraction. Consider two coordinate systems S and S dash. The latter moving with velocity v relative to the former along the positive x direction. Let rod be placed in S dash along x axis. If x1 dash and x2 dash are the coordinates of the axes of the ends of the rods, then a length L dash in the system S dash is L dash equals to x2 dash minus x1 dash. Now let an observer in S measure the length of the same rod. If x1 and x2 are the axes of the ends of the rod at the same time t, then length L of the rod is given by L equals to x2 minus x1. According to Lorentz transformation equation, x2 dash equals to x2 minus vt by under root 1 minus v square by c square, and x1 dash equals to x1 minus vt by under root 1 minus v square by c square. Substituting these values, we get L dash equals to L by under root 1 minus v square by c square. L equals to L dash into under root 1 minus v square by c square. Thus, the length of the rod moving with velocity v relative to the observer is contracted by a factor under root 1 minus v square by c square in the direction of motion. This is known as a Lorentz-Fitzgerald contraction. There are the following points. When v is very small compared to c, then v square by c square will be negligible in comparison to unity. Therefore, L equal to L dash. That is, the length of the moving rod or object is the same as that when it was at rest. When v is comparable to c, under root 1 minus v square by c square will be less than unity. When v is equal to c or greater than c, v square by c square will be equal to unity or greater than unity. Therefore, L equals to 0. This is impossible. The contraction takes place only along the direction of motion and remains unchanged in a perpendicular direction. The contraction cannot be visualized, though it really occurs. The contraction is reciprocal, that is, if two identical rods are at rest, one in frame S and another is frame S dash, each observer in its own frame observes that the other rod is shorter than the rod of its own frame.